Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. She has supported so many people through some very, very challenging times in their lives. And I don't know anybody that does what she does as call it a grief coach. Grief is going to be part of our lives. If you haven't experienced it, it's going to happen at some point. And we're not necessarily just talking about grief in the form of the passing of somebody. It could be the end of a relationship, the end of a job, end of a situation, all different shapes and forms. Bottom line is you need to navigate through it and find a way to do that. And one of the things that comes up with grief is guilt. And we're going to talk about that today. She is the woman behind the National Grief Support Center. It's great to have her back here. Julie Ehlers joins us on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day here in Denver, and I know it is up there in New York, and I'm excited about talking about guilt, even though it's a really difficult topic that people feel, when somebody's passed, or let's say you lost a job, you might feel like, gee, could have I done something different? And in both cases,
can we go there?
Yes.
You're on I think a pinnacle point about all of this, whether it's the passing of somebody, the loss of a job, the loss of a relationship, the guilt thing kind of just trickles on in. And it's just what you said. Could I have done this differently? You wonder about that, and there is where the grief starts swelling up. In any situation that involves grief, I really believe that guilt, that's one of those things. Could I have done it differently? Could I have gotten a medical test sooner for them? Could I have worked even harder at the job or the relationship, right?
Right, exactly. So there's a lot of should have, could have, would have, but the guilt part is really having regret about past actions. You're not really guilty of doing anything that brought harm to somebody, which is the definition of guilt. You've not brought harm to anyone. It's the regrets that we have that get us caught up in our mind and our feelings, and there's nothing that you can do if your spouse drops dead from an aneurysm. Nothing you can do. There was no signs, symptoms, or anything. And that is a tragic situation. But yet, the person left behind might think, maybe if I took better care of us, maybe
Yes.
if I wasn't, feeding him fatty foods.
Yes.
I don't know.
I should have encouraged him to go to the
things.
doctor. He was stubborn
Yes.
about it. I should have pushed harder to get that yearly checkup.
Right. Right. And that is not your responsibility, is what I want to say to the person that feels that way. You are not responsible for them taking care of their health. Yes, you might have been their partner of many, many years, but there was nothing that you could have done to prevent what happened on that day.
Yeah.
When I have a friend whose partner just passed away from a brain tumor, or glio, and my partner passed away from that very same thing years ago, and there was nothing we could have done. Okay, if a person has a headache, people have a headache. You take 2 Advil and you feel better. But a person with a glio has a different kind of headache, and that is up to them to say, that's not right. I need to go to the doctor. Or in this guy's case, who had the glio, he was falling over, literally couldn't walk well. And that got him to the doctor, but he didn't even want to go to the doctor with that. And there was nothing his partner could have done other than what he did do, which was force him to go to the ER eventually. And, but yet his partner called me over the weekend because he died a couple weeks ago. And he called me and said, I am feeling so guilty. I said, why? because I should have said, I love you more. I should have gotten him to the doctor sooner. There was nothing anybody could have done. And what I know about that relationship is that he was telling him he loved him. He was doing everything for him, taking him out when he was well enough to go out still to restaurants, and that they loved, and they lived by the beach, so they were always at the beach. And, they had a great life. But to have this guilt and self-blame, um, as though you could have prevented something or done something better, even when it's unavoidable, like somebody just dropping dead or somebody dying from a short-lived terminal illness like a glioblastoma. Um, there was nothing you could do other than be there during their illness for them. And in the case of somebody just dropping dead, you were there for them. For however many years you were together, you were there for them. And I'm sure that there are things that that person can reflect on that are positive,
Yeah.
that they had a nice relationship. Some people don't have a nice relationship and then their spouse is gone and it's happened. They've been relieved and I've heard it on my end in supporting them. Because the person was suffering, say, from mental illness or that horrible addiction that took their lives.
I'm
So
processing
there's a
this.
lot of stuff
Yeah.
packed, right? There's a lot of stuff packed in this, layers and layers. It's a huge topic.
Mm.
What I have to say, though, to those who are suffering, feeling that guilt, is to take a minute and realize that you were truly there for your person or your job or your relationship. You made an effort. If it's in a relationship that breaks up, often two people have made efforts and it didn't work. And it's because of numerous reasons, but it ends. And it's a tragedy to both people, a tragedy.
Mm.
And to feel guilty or to be stuck in self-blame, it's important to seek somebody who can help you through that because
Ju-
it isn't your fault.
Julie, why is it that you could have multiple situations of potential grief? Person A, we'll just call him that for now, passes, and then person
Right,
B passes in your life. And they could have been a span of decades in between, whatever it is.
right.
Why is it that you may feel more guilt for one than the other?
It's the type of relationship that you had.
Hmm.
It really is the type of relationship you had. I think that parents feel horrible guilt if a child dies because there's so much packed in parenting, right? From the time you've raised your child, from birth, and conception to their death, which is probably usually unexpected. It certainly is not planned that a child dies before a parent. And so a parent will feel that way. A spouse will feel that way.
Hmm.
Um, but, I didn't feel any sort of guilt um, or regrets when my grandparents died because in their lives I saw them as much as I could and they saw me as much as they could. But every time we saw each other, it was so lovely. I mean, we had fun. And while there were challenging times in the family at different points in life, they were always there. So I always felt loved by them, and I know they felt loved by me and revered. So that relationship didn't have regrets or guilt. Um, I didn't feel any regrets after my dad died because I got to tell him everything that I needed to tell him because
Mm,
I knew he was dying and I knew how important it was for me to share with him what he meant to me. But years later, okay, so that's in the first several years, say first 5 years. But after the 5 years, I started feeling like I wish that I had dad around. I wish that I could have spent more time. But there was nothing I could do. My dad was sick in a nursing home and couldn't move. He was very ill with COPD for years. And there was nothing that we could do other than talk on the phone or me occasionally see him. Um, but still, I wish that I could have. And then I let it go
mm.
because I know I did well as a daughter. I was a good daughter, I mean, if I like drill down, like stop thinking that way is what I tell myself.
Right, right. And I'm
Hmm.
as you speak, and I'm sure others are doing the same exact thing, scanning their lives, scanning those no longer with them, and how you feel. And my mom passed 6 years ago. I don't feel guilt. Yeah, of course, we're all going to say the same, no matter who it is. Should have spent more time. Of course,
Hmm.
it's just the way it is. Um,
Right.
but weirdly, I feel like she's around. I can't explain it.
Hmm.
I ask for signs. I get them. They're very specific. Very. Can't ignore it. Put that to the side.
Hmm.
But I think the passing of my father when I was in my 20s, early 20s, suddenly didn't have a close relationship with him. Kind of teeter-tottered back and forth there at the end. I feel a little bit of guilt that I should have spent more time, there. But I do believe that that's unresolved. That's buried. Maybe deal with
Hmm.
it someday.
Right.
Um, but just like you said with your father, things were, and I find that very interesting that you accepted it in the beginning, and then you had years later those thoughts like, wouldn't it be nice if,
Hmm.
what if? I guess that's
Hmm.
normal, isn't it?
I do feel like it's normal because as we talked in previous segments, that grief doesn't go away.
Right.
Once we are faced with it, it's with us and
Hmm.
it changes us forever. And we become more conscientious of, I feel anyway, current relationships, current living. I feel like grief teaches us how to live differently. And so I know that I do. So I'm more conscientious about how I'm feeling too. Like, so years later, I'm like, oh, I wish dad was here. And I wish that I had more time. And I reflect back on my memories though and just love the memories. He always wanted to make it a good time, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
Like your dad with the milkshakes. My dad was Jelly Bellies. When those came out, we were constantly at the candy stores
Sure.
picking out our favorite flavors after we went and had hamburgers and shakes. I mean, all the bad food, right? And um, but that was my dad. And moms are the opposite often, and they're making us eat all the right foods. And that was my mom. And so, it was never a hamburger and a shake. You
Yeah.
always had to have a salad and another green and maybe a protein. That was your meal. So dad made it fun. And I reflect on that. And those memories are so much more dominant in my being that than wishing that I had more time. But there are times I do. And it's just because I miss him.
Hmm.
It's and that's normal and natural to miss the person who's been gone. And I think that once we resolve the grief, the heavy work, once we have done that heavy work and we are in the transformative state of ourselves, and that's when we get new skin, we become a new person, we do things differently in our lives, and then we're on path, right? and we're on a path and we're doing things differently, and I can still miss dad. And then I can have a thought. Is that thought really something I could have done differently? Probably not. Probably not.
You just miss
You
them.
know,
You just miss
yeah,
them, you know, and
yes,
I'm not minimizing anything here, but we miss things. You know, could be I miss going on vacation to this location, whatever it is. It's
right.
different than people. I understand that. I'm just talking about you miss the experience, you miss the memories. Maybe there's no guilt sitting there, but it's just like miss having him around, miss making a phone call. You know, I think I'm good with my mom,
Exactly.
but you know, I was driving the other day and I'm like, maybe I should just call her number and see if anybody's got it yet. You know, little things like that.
Oh,
Yeah, little silly stuff
oh,
like that. You know,
yeah,
and it's just like,
yeah.
yeah. What I did do after she passed, I went through all my voicemail and I recorded every one.
Oh, fantastic, though.
And she'd always say
That's
the same thing. Hi, it's me, mom. You know, the same. Every call was exactly the same when she left a message, but I saved them all. I saved them all.
right,
Yeah.
right. I think that's a really wonderful thing to do. I think technology is so fantastic that we can record things like
Or
that.
just download them. Most, you know, most everything is
Yeah,
voice over IP. If you still have a landline, right? Which I, you know,
right.
that's what she would call from her landline. And so I, you know,
Hmm.
you just hit the button and download them all. Do it before they disappear. Just saying. But
Yep,
yeah, and it's just have I listened to them since I did it? You know, a few years ago. No, but I know I have them. I put them on a hard drive. I know I got them if I want them.
right. Exactly.
Mm,
So, that's normal and natural, to want to have that. It's the tangible stuff, right? The voice, holding the hand, the hug.
mm,
Those are the things that, I mean, when I was in acute grief over anybody dying, that was the stuff that would bring me to my knees. When you're first missing them, they first passed. That's the acute grief stuff. And now I can say, I miss my dad's hands, but in a personal move that I've been doing and packing things up. My dad was an artist, so I have some of
mm,
his early pieces where he was learning about, color composition and the anatomy. And he has a painting that's done in like browns and whites, and he painted his hand holding a cross. And his cuticles and his fingers are right there. And I just feel so blessed to have kept that. And now I want to frame it. It's on, a canvas board.
wow.
And now I'm going to frame it when I get to my new destination. Yeah,
Wow.
but how about that? Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I look at all of this and I wonder, like you say you miss his hands, you know, just maybe
Mm-hmm.
holding his hands. And I get it. I
Mm-hmm.
know what you're talking about. Believe me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you think he left that painting for a reason?
Years previous, yes, knowing. My dad was an intuitive guy. He was a spiritual guy. He was like my person I could go to growing up. He was emotionally capable of like absorbing my emotions and being able to talk to me about them.
Mm,
So I think that he knew that having something tangible is important from the person that will go one day. He was nowhere near death when he,
mm.
you know, painted that. He was young. Um, and yet I have it. But I also knew how important it is to have things like that for me because I'm so tactile. Um, some of us are and some of us aren't. Some people, aren't like that, but I am. I think a lot of people are. Um, so I'm lucky I have it.
Isn't it funny how this all comes together? Like as we're having this conversation, I was talking to somebody the other day, and we like markers. It's crazy. Like I'm addicted to a Flair pen. They're so old school, but I just love and almost became a cartoonist back in the day. And this person came to my office here, and she got a red magic marker, and we were talking about it. She goes, "Yeah, I got that from you." And then when I thought about it, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. That red magic marker came from a box of red magic markers that my father borrowed from his job back in the day,
Oh,
and they still work. I am talking, without exaggeration, 48 years.
oh my gosh.
And
Wow.
and I still have it in the box of those markers. And she has one, just a friend. And I was like, where'd you get this red magic marker from? At your office? Real? I don't have any. Oh, wait a minute, that was from my father. And I remember once going to memory. It's weird; these memories come back. Going to Jones Beach Theater, Long Island, New York. They used to do shows there, not just concerts, which they do now. Seeing The Sound of Music, getting the playbill from it, which was kind of glossy paper, back at his apartment and taking those red magic markers and coloring in things on the playbill. And I was in my low teens, maybe in
Mm,
tweens,
mhm.
11 or whatever. But I remember putting red rosy cheeks on some of the characters, in the playbill from that box of markers. So it's funny, like when you start thinking of these things, it's comforting, like, and maybe releases some of the guilt that we might have, right?
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. And that guilt could be the regrets, you know. I think that the could have, would have, should have's, and just feeling like we could have done something differently or had something
Are
differently,
they
but
always
yet,
going to be there? All of those?
yes,
They are,
yes,
right?
yes. And we have to learn to manage them. We have to learn that we weren't, especially when people feel like they are responsible for somebody's death or they could have done something to help prevent it.
Yeah.
You could not. That is completely out of your control. And I hope you, if you're listening, you take that in
Yeah.
because that is just, you have no control over those things in life.
Yeah.
And what we do have control over is how we process things. We can learn how to process things differently and learn how to let things go. Sometimes when people get caught up in their thoughts, they have a lot of thoughts and they can't get out of their head. There's mindful meditations that we can do. It's just a thought and it keeps going. It's just a thought.
Yep.
It's just a thought. And then the thought's gone.
I get you on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost, you help us reframe it because we look
Hmm.
at it in one way, but if you kind of look at it in another way, and just process it differently, you're going to have that thought, but it's going to go away faster. And not like
Hmm.
you're trying to make a memory of a person go away, but
No.
understanding it, like you said, you know,
Hmm.
we can't we can't be responsible for things out of our control, and
That's
we need
right.
to realize that.
That's right. I want to talk about, you just triggered a thought on it's not going to take the memory of that person away. If we
Mm.
aren't, thinking constantly about them, that's okay. We have a life too. When they were alive, you weren't thinking constantly about them. You were living your life. And then, if it was a spouse, they'd perhaps come home for dinner and you'd spend an evening together. But I want to say something about people moving forward in their lives that's come up over and over again in the past few weeks for me. And that is when people move forward with their lives, not on from the person. I don't like the move on from the person phrase because you're really not moving on from them. You carry them in your heart and you always will. You'll carry them in your being. You always will. But you can move forward and create a new life. And I think that that's super important for people who might feel guilty or feel like they just can't because, you know, that would be sacrilege in their perspective
Yeah.
of moving forward. Maybe there are some people that absolutely just don't want to be married again or don't want to have an intimate relationship again. That's all fine and well. But moving forward with companionship of others, whether in friendship or in intimate relationships, is super healthy for your whole experience on this earth. Your former husband who passed away, or your former wife who passed away, or girlfriend, boyfriend, whomever they were, does not want you to stay in a prison of regret, a prison of guilt, a prison of lack of connection with other people. They don't want that for you.
Right.
I can guarantee that 100%. And they may have also told you in part of your relationship, if something ever happened to me, I'd want you to have a new relationship. Many couples do that. While they're creating their life, they have their kids, they're getting older, and then somebody drops dead. They're gone. There was nothing you could do about it. And years later, you have a right, a human right, to have that companionship and that wonderful connection that you can have with another human being. You have a right to have that.
We're out of time, but we're at the point where this is everything in terms of moving your life forward and the things we need to understand. You're there to support. Best way to find you, how do we do that?
You can call me directly at 720-480-3317. And you can reach me through the nationalgriefsupportcenter.com. Always remember, folks, before something great happens, everything falls apart. Reflect on that. Reflect on that.
It's the truth, because you look at it this way. This is my belief. If you didn't feel sadness, sorrow, how would you know what joy and happiness is?
Wouldn't.
You would. It would just be a flat line. You just go through life, robotically. So you need to feel that to feel this, and reverse of that. But
yes.
Thank you, Julie, for today. A lot of great insight. Really appreciate it.
Have a great week.
You too. We'll be right back.
All right. Bye-bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.